Photoshop has a noise brush feature, but it's a hidden noise brush feature. So how can you create and use brushes to add very quick noise in Photoshop? First thing to do, create a file. So File and New and Create. You can create it a fairly large size, maybe 3,000 or 4,000, depending on the sort of images that you use. So once you've got that, what you can then do is go to Filter and then down to Noise and add noise. And of course there's many other noise features within Photoshop. There's some great ones also in the filter gallery, really worth checking out. And you can also things like Camera Raw filter as well, has a great noise feature. So just try out different noise settings. So here I've got 183 for the amount of noise, and I'm using Gaussian and monochromatic. You can vary it. You can of course go for color, but personally might as well go with black and white, perfectly reasonable. And you can vary it, of course. You can just reduce it down, get hardly any noise at all if you want very faint noise, or maybe push it up, fair up to the maximum at 376 in this case, and click OK. So once you've done that, next thing you need to do is define it as a pattern. You need to store it away as a pattern. And that is done by going over here to Edit and down here to Define Pattern. Now there's a limit to the size of the pattern. I think it's about 5,000 or by 5,000, something like that. Might have changed in recent versions, but you will find that there will be a cutoff point. So Define Pattern and give it a name. Let's just give it a name, Noise Pattern, and click OK. So now you can use that as your brush stroke. Well, how to do that? What you need to do is go to the brush tool. Let's just go over here. Here's the brush tool. In the brush tool, you can then go and set different types of brushes, but I'm just going to go with a soft round brush, basic brush, perfectly reasonable. And let's just go back to the image now. In here, what you need to do is go to the brushes. So down here, you've got brush settings and brushes. Well, I'm going to go with brush settings. I always think that's more useful. And there you can see all these options. You've got shape, dynamics, scattering, really useful for all kinds of different designs. But now the one you want to turn on is the texture one. So make certain that is clicked and turned on. And when you do that, you will see you get quite a fair amount of settings. And now just apply it. And that's the previous brush that I created. I'm just going to quickly go here and select the texture that I just created. So let's just go and click here. And here's the textures. You can see I've got some others already added there, but this is the one I've just added. So there it is, just select it. Just click there, it's selected. Once you've done that, you can now modify it in numerous ways, but let's just apply it first. So you can see, here's the basic noise, just applied here. Now, of course, what you could do, say you want to give some texture, say around the shape of the arm, you just go there and you can just sort of go like that. Obviously vary the size of the brush, maybe make it smaller. So it's just concentrated on adding some noise, say, to a particular area. Maybe you want to give some texture to the hair, so you can sort of give some lovely colour into the hair there. Sort of like make unique scattering. Maybe by changing the colour, you might go here and let's just change that to a maybe more golden colour. So go for a golden colour, something like that. And you can sort of scattering of gold dust into her hair. Obviously you could make it slightly better sort of thing. I've obviously added over here as well. But you can see now she's got some gold dust, but you can also see she's got gold that she's pouring early. That was the original Adobe stock image. Now these Adobe stock images are great because they're free. You can go to the Adobe website, there's stock photos, and there's a free section. Great for downloading all kinds of images. Obviously they've got vast more in there paid for, but this is free and you can just use it and then just apply, and you can see then you can just add a nice sort of scattering of additional gold coming down, or silver or green, depending on the colour you go for. So you could always go there, you can change it. You don't have to go with the gold, you go then mix it and go put some white in there. And of course, again, you can vary the size. You don't have to go for that. You could go maybe smaller and you could just scatter it down there and you can just apply again and so on. So you've got that amazing little effect. But what you can also do is you can make finer texture as well. And that's the great thing about this. Just go over here, you've got the scale. See, I've got quite a large scale there. You can push it up to 1,000. So 1,000% is obviously the max. It doesn't allow you to go beyond that. So what you can do, you can just reduce it down and make it very, very faint. And you can see the great thing about it, it's got a preview there. Now, if you make it too small, you'll notice what happens. You actually get a sort of structure appearing in it because, of course, the file size that you used wasn't seamless. It's pretty big, but it's not seamless. So it's not 5. You can make it, like say, 5,000 by 5,000. I think that's the maximum you can use anyway. And now you can then apply it. Now it's very faint now because it's very small noise. But you might want that in certain images. Maybe let's just push this up again. Maybe go for, say, 90%. And then you can see scattering there. And it goes down that way and so on. So you can create all kinds of different effects with this noise. And again, you can apply it maybe around, say, there, or maybe along the arm. A whole range of different options just with this noise effect. But what you can also do is, let's just scale it up a bit more. You can see there, you can also modify the brightness, so you can see you get effect maybe bringing more of this. Now, you might not want that. If you don't want that sort of glow sort of effect there, what you do, just go there, go that way, and you can see by pushing it to 120, 100, you can see you can reduce it down. So you can make it very, very sort of less dense is probably the best way of looking at that. But let's just go again to brightness, just push it to, so I can see it a bit there, and apply it again. And you can see that noise. So all from the same basic noise texture, you can see you can create some interesting texture designs very quickly. You can also modify the contrast as well. So let's just change that. And again, you can see the result down here in the preview, which is really nice. I mean, it's subtle, very subtle. It makes it slightly blurring if you reduce it down. So you can see, do that, you can see it change. Now you can also go here, texture each tip, apply it, not particularly that much of a difference. So let's just apply again, but that option's available for particular things. Also, the key thing is not go for this one. So you go multiply and you get this result, which personally is not what I want for a noise brush. The noise brushes come, these ones down here. Now hard mix, you could use that. Again, you can see it's not particularly noise. It's got a sort of interesting effect, but it's not noise. What you need is this one, linear height, and also height. That's another one there. Just subtle differences, but you can apply that and you can see again you've got this noise effect there. Also, you can add some depth jitter as well. And you can see just subtle changes just by doing that. Just very minor change. Probably if you apply it like this, you probably hardly notice it personally. But you can see change the depth and you can then see the other brush kicking in. I don't want that. So what you really need to do, I always find, is to keep this about 7 or 8%, just fairly low. If you kept the depth there, then you'll just see the noise effect itself, not the actual, here, if I push that again, you can see the actual brush, which you may want going through your noise brush. Okay, so you got this. Well, great. What else can you do? Well, you of course can go back to that image. Let's just go back to the noise. Got this noise here. And you can tweak it, apply different effects to it. So you've got this, you can maybe go here, filter, maybe go for some blur. So filter, then go down to the blur and Gaussian blur. So let's just select that. Now, obviously you don't want to push it to 73, but if you push it, say, to 3 or 4, 3.9, something like that, then you get that sort of effect. Also, image, you might want to go for auto tone. And then you've got a slightly different noise. I think that's a nice little noise effect. Exact same as before. If you want to use it in the noise brush, in the Photoshop noise brush, simply go to edit and then down there to define pattern again. Now this one, I'm going to give it another name, noise pattern 1 or whatever you want to call it. Just keep it the default as well. Click OK. Now again, you go back to this. Let's go back to this image. Exactly the same as before. Go over here, paintbrush tool. That's the brush tool there. And then go over here, texture, make something that's still on. And now change the actual texture. And you can see I've got some textures already in there. There's another one there, but this is the new one. Always puts it along from the previous one. So there's that noise pattern I've just added. And you can see now the result slightly different, slightly more chunky noise appearing there. And of course you can reduce this down. You can just set the scale and you can also modify the depth again. Now you can see some more of that coming through there. Maybe just reduce that down a bit. Depth jitter. Keep that like there. You can just vary it, just try them out, just see what settings work, linear height, like that. barely notice the line going through there. And now change the brightness, maybe go with that. And again, you can apply your, now you can see you've got a different noise effect. Now you might want this sort of different variations in noise, sort of a more chunkier noise, which you can then apply. Maybe you want to create snow or something. This is like a lovely sort of snow. Let's just, what you need to do, obviously, in this case, is just increase the size. Obviously, at the moment, maybe push it like that to 170. And then you can see quickly, very rapidly, you can fill that. Obviously, you don't want to do that. Let's just undo. Now, what you could do, maybe select the sky. Let's just see, select and sky. Useful that Photoshop comes with a few things like subject. Let's see if it works out. Yep, there's the sky. It's selected the sky. Now you can go over again, and now you can very quickly apply a sort of very loose sort of snow in the background. Probably not going to happen in the desert where obviously this woman is, but there you've got that sort of weird effect added over that entire sky very quickly using this noise brush effect. Now, of course, exact same as before, you can change the color. Maybe you say, you know what, I don't want white noise. I can apply it again, and you can see then as you apply it, you can get different, maybe a very cloudy, very dark, gloomy sky that would be. But of course, you can also modify what you've applied, the brush stroke. This area is selected. You're not going to affect anything else. So filter, just go down there, blur, maybe go for motion blur. And you can see then it's sort of a rain sort of effect going down. Let's just change the angle. You can just quickly tweak the angle so it looks like a bit more like rain coming down. That noise has been added to that scene. It's pouring down. Again, probably not something that you would see in a desert like that. But still, you've got this, and then you go image, auto tone, and you can get some very weird sky effect, wouldn't it? It'd be sort of weird glow, cosmic rays coming down from space, all created using the Photoshop noise brush effect. And of course, you can still continue to add additional noise. So let's go select and deselect. And exactly the same, you can go here and just tweak the settings, set the scale, the brightness, tweak that, maybe go reduce it there, make it a lot less, and again, apply it. This time, let's just change the color, maybe go for obviously a slightly different, and this time a pink noise quickly added to there, maybe a green or whatever. You could just add scattering to give an impression of maybe greenery added to the thing. Obviously in this case, a very weird pink greenery, but still you got this effect. Now, all the other settings are still available. There's some great options here with the paintbrush tool. Obviously the paintbrush tool has got things like symmetry, which is good. So you've got mandala, radial, you can use those, all with this noise brush to create some really weird and wonderful noise brush effects in Photoshop. But let's just reduce the size down again and just tweak that down. Now, another thing you could do is apply this noise effect on, say, a layer. You don't have to apply it just purely on the background layer or just a particular layer. You can create another layer. So layer and new and layer. And that layer, you can now add some brush. Now let's just quickly go over here again and use that and just apply very quickly. Let's just increase the size a bit so it fills the whole thing very rapidly. And you can see you get that noise. And again, you don't have to keep the same scale. Let's just go reduce down, and you can see different scatterings. Maybe put a glow effect, sort of noise effect glow around there. If you're using white or something, it's another option. Now, of course, it's a layer, so you can move things around. So you can see now I've got the move tool there selected. I can go over here. Where's the layers? Let's go quickly go here. Here's the layers. So you can see we've got this layer now. This layer is selected. You can reposition it, move it around, just change it. Maybe instead of applying the brush strokes again, what you can do, resize this. You can also just duplicate it. Hold down the Alt Option key, and then you can duplicate this design. So you can see add 2 or 3 layers. Maybe select it again. Now, some are not always easy to select it, but just select, say, these layers over and over again. Or simply go over here, select it. Sometimes if you apply a brush, remember you're applying, there's lots of transparency. You might select the wrong part of the image. You think you're selecting part that is actually, you can select, but you can't actually select it. So layer, and then just go down here and duplicate layer. So now with that, you can of course shift that and move it, use maybe the arrow keys just to shift it slightly, different angles, and you can create some very weird textures. However, another thing, because your brush stroke is applied on this layer, you can always go over here. You've got options here for, say, this one, and I'm just going to go up here. You can just vary it, lighten, just change maybe difference and so on to create all kinds of weird textures from your noise. Your Photoshop noise brush can be used to create different textures. Now you can do that when you're actually applying the brush as well. Of course, you can use different blend modes. You don't have to use just normal blend mode when you're applying the brush. So soft light, hard mix and so on. Also, because it's on a layer, you can apply effects. So filter, you can go to distort and maybe go to wave and just add just a subtle change to a wave effect to your noise. And you can see as you do that, click OK. And you can see now you've got this sort of noise effect that's sort of flowing through the image. And again, you can combine it, duplicate it again, maybe distort it again, liquefy it, all kinds of different combinations. And again, you can still continue to add some more. So click here and let's go and change that to white. And again, you could quickly add sort of glow around the person there and so on. But what you can also do is you can also go here and you can add 3D as well. So you've got this there, you just say quickly do this, got this effect all the way around. With that, you can now go over here to effects. So long as the layer is selected, the key thing is the layer needs to be selected. And then you can go to effects, click there, go to bevel emboss. And now you can see what you get. It's got this lovely, near enough like a oil painting. You've got this texture that's like rippled through your design, all from that noise brush, which you've applied in different places, different things. And this is only on one layer. So let's click OK there. So you can see the design there. I think that's a lovely brush texture. You could, of course, maybe apply the noise around the body, around particular areas, parts of the image. Do you want to give a sort of creation of energy that's coming through your brush strokes? But let's just go to this one. So again, exactly the same thing. You can go here and do the same. So click effects, again, bevel and emboss, and then you can see you've got another texture, but you can vary it. Maybe go for maybe that. You can see you can really, in this case, it's now virtually obliterating the image. Maybe that's pushing it too much, but you can soften and give it a little different texture, maybe different lighting angles for there, maybe different colors, screen there, you just go and so on. You can vary the impact, the lighting, gloss, etc., as well as the styles. Out of bevel I'm using there. I also add strokes, whatever. And then click OK. You can still, of course, continue to add brush strokes as well. So you might say, let's just add some texture there, some additional 3D texture there. Or, again, filters and maybe motion blur and so on. A whole range of different options for different filter effects that you can apply. And again, because it's on a layer, you can go over here and you can go to opacity and reduce it down, so maybe make it a little more subtle than what I'm doing there with those set at 100%. So let's just reduce that down less there so you can see a bit more of the image. Of course, once you're happy with it, you can flatten everything, layer and flatten image. But you've still got noise brushes. Again, you can go here, brush settings, you can tweak these brush settings and you can always go back to like, this one, maybe apply some weird and wonderful effects to this as well. You don't have to have just basic noise. Filter and then go say to liquefy. This is a great feature, I think, liquefy. In liquefy you've got this one, never remember what it is, forward warp tool. It's a good old name for it. And you can see then you can just shift it. I love shifting. I love going here and just changing, tweaking the noise, and you can just wobble it around sort of the brush. I'm using a mouse. I'm not using an art pad and pen. So I can just do that, and you can see you can create some very weird sort of like surface. Oh, don't push it. Void going, pushing it that way, because what will happen, it'll drag in like that, which I think looks ugly. But you can see you can create some like surface of the sun, sort of Photoshop sun brushes as well as noise brushes. So there you can see you can create some very interesting, weird, wonderful distortions to your noise. Still noise. Obviously, if it's a big document, again 5,000 by 5,000 or something. Again, edit, and then just down here, define pattern. So define pattern, click OK. And then you can then use that. Let's just go back again, and I'm just going to quickly revert the image. So now again, make certain the brush tool is selected, exactly the same as before. Brush settings, again, these are always in window and down to brush settings, you got there. And then you can again, just go here and select any of the various noise, and you can save maybe 20 or 30 of these. Another great option to do, instead of saving them to the patterns or these textures, you can always save them to the library. So you can go to Window and then Libraries. And this is a brilliant place. So you could have like noise ones here in your library. So they'll be just stored on the cloud. You can then, of course, drag them in at any point. So let's just quickly show you how to do that. Just go here, this image, I've got here, library. Obviously, I'm going to save it to my text patterns when I've called it here. Doesn't have to be that. Of course, it could be a noise section. That would be much better. Little plus down the bottom. Click there and then just extract from image. You could use it to create pattern designs in there as well. Even better. But you can go for graphic. So graphic, select that, and then it will be stored away. You can see it just says there, background. Takes a few seconds to process it, stores it in the cloud, and then you can always then just drag it very quickly from here. Once it's done it, it's still taking some time to process. I guess it's just the internet, how quick it goes. There it is, just stored away. You can use it again. You don't have to store it in your patterns. You might just use it here. You can access it at any point you really need it. So now, once you go back, you've got your library there. I'm not going to use it. I wanted to show you that you can store it in different places. And then you go again here to texture. That's still on. Click here and select the latest one. You can see now, because you've added that distortion, that noise effect. Maybe use like a displacement as well. That's another thing. So maybe you've got an image. Maybe this image could be used to distort the noise. Okay, so you've got this. And again, you can tweak it. And exactly the same as before. You can apply it. And you can see now you get this very weird sort of noise texture added. Sort of stream of, I don't know, whatever, snow again, in this case being white. Or any other colour, obviously. Again, you can change it. Change the colour. Tweak the colours like that very quickly. And you can apply these to shapes, to any layer as well. You can use it to modify maybe a gradient. So let's just quickly do this. Here's a gradient, classic gradient. I'm just going for classic gradient. And I can just apply that. Got that. Exactly the same. Go over here. You got your brush there, your noise brush. And then you can apply it to this. You can just modify this gradient very quickly this way. Or maybe again, change the colour to white and apply it again. And you can see you can create all kinds of unique designs. Exactly same for layer, new layer. And then you can add your noise to a layer. Again, just change the scale a bit so it's not exactly the same setting. There's sadly no offset feature. Would be very nice. But there's no way of shifting it, moving it within this scale, nor is there a rotation. If you want to have some rotation, say you've got some noise effect, you want it changed angle, then perhaps I would suggest obviously define it like that. When you define the pattern, you can define and change the angle and then just use that instead of just you could have like a 0 degree one, a 45 degree, a 90 degree one, etc. And exactly the same as before, we got here, we got the brush head, and I'll move that out of the way. Got my layers, it's on a layer. Go to effects, so click here, bevel emboss, and again, you've got this lovely texture and a bit of depth added to your gradient, which of course you can modify depth there and click OK and layer, and again, flatten image and so on. So you can create a variety of different gradient designs as well as, of course, applying it to Adobe stock images or any image. These noise brushes can be used to create some amazing designs in very quick time. So I think these would be of interest. Have you got any uses for this? Will you be using this noise brush feature? It'd be great if you put that in the comments. It's always nice to know if you think, you know what, this is a useful brush that I could be using for all kinds of different things. A like or dislike, always appreciated. Please subscribe to the channel. Always add new videos about Photoshop and obviously related Photoshop things as well. Bye.